Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. I got videos today from FBE Capital.
When people scream men need therapy or that men need to work on themselves, it's never because they genuinely care about men's mental health.
True.
It's simply because they can't control men.
No longer have I accepted the standard of dating someone who hasn't gone to therapy.
I no longer want to date or trust men that have not been to therapy.
Like a year of
You don't need therapy, man. You just need some squats.
court-mandated therapy and like 2 intro to feminism courses.
Day 1 of tapering off of my antidepressants, and I'm so nervous but so excited.
It's like everything got worse.
I have been in therapy since I was 6 years old. My parents said we want her to be emotionally intelligent, and that I am. I never stopped going to therapy.
I have been on
How does that even make sense? So you started at 6 and you've been going this whole time? Sounds like a racket.
Zoloft or sertraline since I was 16, and I've been on the highest dose, which is 200 milligrams.
So I'm on an SSRI, really
This is probably why we don't go to therapy. We don't want to get put on drugs.
high dose, and then Vyvanse also affects your serotonin levels.
I've been taking sertraline for my anxiety for 4 weeks now. Something's funny, I laugh until I cry. I'm angry, I cry. I feel everything so intensely. I don't even want to feel anything anymore.
Go to therapy.
My mood has been so low. I've had no motivation.
There needs to be a section on dating apps that says, have you been to therapy?
And I've been struggling with the smallest
Yeah, please. I would love that. And then I would avoid all the women have been in a lot of therapy.
tasks, like even having a shower.
And if yes, how long did you stay?
They recently
And oh yes, that'd be perfect. If yes, how long have you been in therapy? Since 6? Yeah, I'm gonna avoid you.
did these studies on these, coping techniques. They taught coping techniques.
Making this video.
And it turned out it made kids sadder and more anxious. They measured this. And the reason was regularly ruminating on your bad feelings can make you feel worse.
Yes, boys, they love saying it. Men need therapy. But what they really mean is men need to do what I say, or else I have to up my anxiety meds again.
So we decided to up my dosage just by 5 milligrams.
I just increased my medication.
Moved up to the 20 milligrams.
And within an hour of taking it, I was throwing up. I'm gonna give it a couple weeks, figure it out, take some Zofran with it.
I started at 25 milligrams, 25, then 50, then 75, then 100, until I got to 200 milligrams.
My
They're just drug guinea pigs for these drug companies, aren't they?
God, it is a true epidemic of biblical proportions out there, with millions of young women not only in therapy, but also hooked on a whole host of anxiety meds, ADHD meds, and weight loss meds, which is obviously a perfect cocktail for disaster.
So I'm on an SSRI, really high dose, and then Vyvanse also affects your serotonin levels. So when you combine them, for me, not good.
Yeah, no shit.
So I don't know what we're going to do next. Probably go back to Ritalin.
These women are getting milked harder than a dairy cow, with most therapy
True.
sessions easily costing well over $100 or even $200 per session.
And I said, boring.
The gym is cheaper, man. Gym's a lot cheaper.
Thanks for that advice. Here's $250.
Wow, $250 a session. Even in Australian fund money, that is still well over $160. Now multiply that with 8 clients a day, 5 days a week, and you start to see how insane the amount of money is that these therapists make. Please drop a like if you think that most therapists are just milking clients, and comment down below what you think.
100%.
Because this is what it's all about, right? Motherfucking cock-sucking money. Yeah.
So it's no wonder that TikTok is absolutely flooded with people telling you you need therapy. And what a coincidence, they all just happen to sell that.
I'm a therapist who just got out of therapy, and as a therapist in therapy,
Is it normal to go to therapy every week? I'm a therapist, so let me tell you, it is totally normal to go to therapy every single week.
But before we dive into this messed up and corrupt world that is therapy and anxiety medication, I must make a few things very clear. First up, 99% of therapists are absolute clowns who don't know what the hell they're doing, and you should never let them work on your mental health.
If you're feeling anxious too, you can pop along with me. Even though I am feeling anxious and I'm frustrated at myself for feeling this way, you don't get anxious. This is not at all how I feel. I know that anxiety is not actually that at all.
Yep, she's an actual therapist.
Is she just Like tapping yourself everywhere?
With paying clients, but we'll get to her in a sec. Because second, therapy is mostly a pseudoscience that only
I'm English and pseudo with a P.
In very specific situations and for very specific cases can actually help to treat people, but only when it's done by solid experts with decades of experience.
I just went to my first therapy session because the demons finally won. I found this girl, we jumped on a call, and I really liked her. Like, we got along immediately. And then it wasn't until the next day that I looked her up. I did some research and I found out that she was 23.
Classic. And 3, most importantly, in order to be an effective therapist and provide real benefits to clients, you actually need to be an exceptional human being with an extraordinary mind, which is almost never the case for 99% of.
I mean, most women are getting, psychology degrees and all these degrees because they want to be a therapist, because it's a prestige in a sense, not because they really want to help people.
Therapists out there.
I am feeling a little more anxious this evening, so I'm just noticing that. I had a few minutes between clients and I accidentally really triggered my nervous system and my wounding because I found myself down a rabbit hole of looking at someone's Instagram that I shouldn't have.
This woman here is barely functioning as an adult.
Wow.
But somehow she's going to help you deal with your mental problems.
Even though I haven't found my person yet, I know that I am worthy and I am wonderful, but I don't have to be mean to myself.
Right. It is clear that we are living in a world where anxiety is the new in vogue word, and everyone tries to convince you that it's somehow the worst thing ever to have, when in reality, you need anxiety. It actually keeps you safe, since anxiety keeps you engaged in thinking about potential dangers. However, just like breathing in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide, it is perfectly normal, but hyperventilating is a complete disaster.
But if you're the kind of person that gets really overwhelmed by a text message,
So I'm getting my hair done, I have foils in my hair.
Again, over a text message. Like, come on.
I literally start to get anxiety.
Numbing down your anxiety with these meds or constantly reflecting over and over again about how anxious you are and how every little thing gives you more anxiety is only going to make your life miserable. With all of these meds and all of this therapy available, when have you ever heard a therapist tell you that they've cured all these patients?
True.
If you ask a real doctor, they can give you precise stats on how many patients they've had and how many were cured, even telling you how many died and how long they lived before they died. However, therapists can't do this because they have no idea. They almost never actually cure someone.
That it's sometimes polluted by scientific fraud, where data, analyses, conclusions, and even research participants have been created out of thin air. They simply don't exist.
And patients simply stop coming because either it's not working or they run out of money. Not to mention the fact that millions of people,
I would think the running out of money thing is probably the biggest thing.
People end up worse than they were before going to therapy.
You should not be in therapy for an extended period of time, and I'm a therapist that's saying this.
I'm Dr. Joseph Wittering, and I run the world's largest practice dedicated to helping people come off psychiatric medications. Psychiatric medications, these are not a cure. They do not fix any kind of chemical imbalance. This is just marketing slogans, not scientific fact. In fact, the way these drugs work, every single one of them, is by masking the symptoms that the person is experiencing.
And so the women screaming men need therapy don't actually care about men's mental health. They are simply frustrated that the men they are interacting with don't do what they want. We are living in a gynocentric world that views everything that women want to feel and do as perfect, while at the same time they despise how men want to feel and behave and dismiss this as toxic and evil. These people preach about compassion and empathy, but completely fail to understand that men's and women's biochemistry is totally different, which means that we want to interact in this world in a different way. We don't want to form friendships the same way women form friendships, and we don't want to interact with each other the same way women do. Many men can easily sit together and stare at a lake for hours and have the best.
You know how many times I've had dinner with my boys and we say nothing? Literally nothing. Probably like for an hour long of just eating dinner and chilling and relaxing and then going to do something afterwards. All the damn time.
Best time ever. While most women want to fire off 500 words per second and have a good crying session.
I love crying. Crying could be a way to experience more joy.
Crying is actually really, really good for you.
Because I cry every single day of my life.
And so most of these clowns on platforms like BetterHelp or TikTok will not actually help you.
So I was a therapist on BetterHelp for about 3 months. BetterHelp encourages therapists to have up to 50 clients in a week.
They need to do better. They really need to take care of their staff, take care of their clinicians, right? And not have to see 10 to 12 people in a day. That's crazy pants.
The dirty little secret is, if you don't have a serious mental illness, such as wartime PTSD or being SA'd as a kid, then most therapy is a waste of time and money, and you are simply the perfect client for 99% of these
That makes sense to me.
charlatans.
Also, the incentive is for therapists to treat the least sick for the longest period of time. That's the incentive. Because you don't want the schizophrenic patient who really needs you.
Right.
They're really hard to treat, right? You don't want the bipolar patient.
Right.
Some people will refuse to see those patients.
See, they're great at holding your hand and making you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but in terms of actually solving serious issues, forget about it. And the reason for that is actually really simple. You see, real science is based on two fundamental principles: repeatability and reproducibility. And especially the social quote-unquote sciences have struggled with this for centuries. In fact, it is well known in psychology specifically that 40 to 50% of all studies cannot be replicated, and this number is only increasing.
So for a long time, especially in psychology and in life sciences, people were just like, I would do a study, I would report whatever I want to report in a paper, but in reality, this was just a fluke, and no one is going to replicate it. So people are going to base their work off of my fluke.
270 scientists from the Reproducibility Project Psychology took on a huge task: rerun 100 studies that had been published in 3 important psychology journals. And by 2015, they had replicated all 100. And of those 100 replications, only 36% resulted in any significant results. And for that 36% that were replicated, the effect sizes were on average half of what was originally reported.
So not only can results of psychology studies often not be verified, but there's no real motivation to do so. But the problem gets even worse, since psychology has a major problem that's never even mentioned, and that is the problem of calibration. You see, when you measure anything such as distance, speed, voltage, or temperature, you need
This is how you know freaking FBE is totally an engineer.
good instrumentation that is
He's told us, but the way he talks and everything's like, bro, you an engineer.
carefully calibrated. And when you start messing around a person's brain, you definitely need to make sure that your instruments can be trusted to give you perfect results. Well, in therapy, the instrument that you're using is another person's brain, such as this one.
I have been on Zoloft or sertraline since I was 16, and I've been on the highest dose, which is 200 milligrams.
Or this one.
Ever since I decided to share my own mental health journey, dating back to 2 years ago when I checked myself in for inpatient mental health. And I say over and over again that my lived experiences enrich.
Yeah, do you really trust any of these clowns with your mental health? Or that they have the capacity to perfectly analyze or treat another person?
Particularly these serotonin antidepressants like the SSRIs and the SNRIs. They can cause a condition called tardive dysphoria, where long-term people will start to develop this feeling of being very blunted, having low motivation, some cognitive impairment, and high background anxiety.
I have been on Zoloft or sertraline since I was 16.
Hell no. Because when a surgeon breaks his leg, he can still perfectly supervise a surgery or even conduct the surgery himself with the right equipment, since his knowledge or technical abilities have not changed. However, an individual who breaks their brain is in no place to treat or even analyze another person, since clearly their instrument is no longer perfectly calibrated to measure correctly. And this problem becomes clear when you see that most of these therapists can't even separate simple things such as politics from their sessions.
True.
Therapy shouldn't be political.
Therapy is political because no matter what you try to do, there is a world outside of your therapy room.
One of the most violent things in the field of mental health
therapists can do is continue to remain apolitical or have a neutral stance.
If you get shot and start bleeding on the streets, you do not care what politics the doctor has that saves you. You just want to live. And the same holds true for anyone dealing with serious mental issues. You simply want to get rid of them and stop suffering. This is why, unless you have a serious condition, you should not even be considering therapy. And if you do, you need to make sure that you are actually dealing with a skilled professional with...
I've always said it, guys. Some of us, we may need it. Some of us do. We've gone through some things. But majority of the time, I've always said it. Get to those squats, man. Get to those squats.
Decades of experience and not some millennial toddler. When you deal with the death of a loved one, the best case is to simply accept that it will hurt and that you will be in pain. So you should take time to grieve. You can cry, you can curse, or you can vent your anger in any other way. But after a few weeks, you will need to move on and accept the fact that this pain may never fully go away. That is simply life. There's not a single animal on this planet that's immune to death, and many of them have strong social bonds, which makes losing a family member hurt just as much. But they do not have decades of therapy sessions or heavy doses of medication to deal with it. They simply mourn intensely, say their goodbyes, and move on. Because in the end, that is what life is all about. Stay safe, guys.
You know, after Mother passed, so many people pushed me towards therapy. Men, women, everyone around me was pushing me towards it because they thought I wasn't dealing with it properly, because all I did was put my head down and focused on YouTube, and I didn't go out, I didn't do anything. All I did was just do this for a year or so. And then now I came back out, like a little bit different, and I still don't think I've fully processed Mother's passing or anything, but it doesn't affect me the same way I think people assume it would affect me. You know, I love my mother. She is truly the only woman I miss and will ever miss in my life now, right? But I felt like I've achieved and done things to mitigate like the suffering that I felt thinking about her all the time. I think that's how I can kind of put that. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys next time.